Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update. The afternoon update with Lynlee Foo.
Good afternoon. It's Lynlee here with you on Industry Insight. Now, AI is everywhere right now, from the apps on our phones to the platforms running global businesses. But not every company or every region is at the same stage of the journey. And overnight, Databricks, the data and AI company, announced it has raised $1 billion in new funding at a valuation of over $100 billion. The company also crossed the $4 billion revenue run rate in Q2, growing more than 50% year over year, with over $1 billion of that from AI products alone. So what does this momentum tell us about how enterprises are using AI at scale? And what comes next for businesses in Asia? Joining me to break it all down is Adam Conway, Senior Vice President of Products at Databricks. Adam, thanks for being with us this afternoon.
Thanks so much, Lynlee. It's great to be here.
Yeah, pity we can't get you into the studio. Would have loved to meet you, in person.
Yeah, it's been such a busy trip, going from one place to another. I also would have loved to be in the studio as well.
Now, Adam, if I may ask, what are you doing in Singapore?
I'm here because we have an event where we're bringing some of our customers together so we can get feedback on what their needs are from the company. So we're trying to make sure we're spending time with our customers here in Asia to make sure that their needs are being met by our platform.
Okay. Now, before we get into Asia's AI story, let me start with this milestone: $100 billion valuation, $4 billion revenue run rate, and over $1 billion from AI products. That's huge. So what's driving this kind of growth?
Yeah, it's a lot of things, but I'd say it really is this confluence of data and AI. Companies have lots and lots of data. Mm-hmm. One of the ways that they want to make use of it is via AI. And I'll say how that works. What companies want is they want basically AI that utilizes their data. And what is that? And so that means sometimes it could mean you want to have an agent does customer support for you. You want an internal agent that helps you deal with contracts or deal with regulations. These are all sorts of things that you want to have AI help you with. But for that to work, it's got to operate on your own enterprise data. It has to understand your enterprise environment. And I think that's really what's driving it, is this need by enterprises to utilize their data in this way. And I think that we're benefiting from that need.
Okay. So, and from what you're seeing, are customer priorities in Asia very different from those in the U.S.?
Well, I'll say in general, they're the same, but there's two very interesting things about Asia that make Asia a little bit different. One is, in the U.S., it's just one regulatory, domain, one set of rules. Of course, in Asia, there's many different countries, many different rules, many cultures, and they want to adopt technology. They adopt technology differently. There's a second piece, though, that I think is very interesting about Asia, and that is, in some places in Asia, often they're building technologies, they're rolling out infrastructure for the first time. And maybe the best example I can think of is payments, like when they're rolled out banks a while ago. You don't realize this, but in Asia, you're living in the future compared to the U.S. when it comes to payments. And it's because when the payment systems got built here, they were able to take advantage of what technology that was already available, and they're able to look at what we had in the U.S. and say, how can we do it better? And I think AI is kind of a similar moment to that. There's this opportunity in Asia to, I think, look at things, freshly and do something that we've never done in the U.S. Okay. Or we can't do because there's too much entrenched existing technology. So I think that's what's most exciting about AI and Asia together.
Okay. And part of Databricks' strategy for this new funding round is expanding Agentbricks and launching Lakebase, if I'm not mistaken. So for a business leader listening in, what do those actually mean in practical terms?
Yeah. So I'll start first with Agentbricks. So Agentbricks is a product where we help customers take out or create agents, again, based on their own data, that are highly reliable. That's kind of first and foremost, making sure they provide their responses are accurate, not full of hallucinations, et cetera. And then second of all, ready to be put in production. So if you look at many AI projects today, they get started, they look promising, but they can never make it to production. And we think Agentbricks really enables people to do that in a very efficient way. So that's really the goal around Agentbricks. Lakebase is a new database technology, which, and think of it, companies run on databases. So this is things like your bank balance is stored in a database. If your grades at your school are held in a database, so all of those, so databases are really kind of the infrastructure for all of these types of technologies. And we are doing some interesting, we acquired a company called Neon, and we're building a product that we think sort of has disruptive technology in the database industry. And as an interesting add-on, it's also the way this database works. It's very easy to use this database with AI. So it's very easy for AI to interact with this database as well, which makes it also, I think, interesting in that way as well.
Okay. This is the move from storing data to analyzing it to now having AI systems that act on it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. So if you look at, and actually that's a very, very good way of looking at it. There's really two problems that you need to solve that enterprises have today with AI and data. First is you have to be very technical to access data. The second problem is that it's very difficult to build these AI agents, and it's very difficult to make them reliable. And if you look at both of those problems together, those are both problems that Databricks is solving. The first one, by using AI to democratize access to these tools. We have products where you can just type in and basically chat with your data. So you can actually understand your revenue projections, you can understand how a sales team is doing in a certain region, ask all sorts of interesting questions just in plain text. And the second thing, that second side of it is like I said, is like that Agentbricks. How do you go build highly reliable agents and build your own AI, essentially, to meet the needs of your employees and customers?
But how close are we to seeing this in practice? Is this future talk or?
No, these are products that are shipping today. So we launched this chat with your data product a year ago, or a year and a half ago almost, at our Data and AI Summit in San Francisco. It was in June 2024. And we have many customers that use that on a daily basis. We use it internally on a daily basis as well, of course. Agentbricks is a newer product. We announced that this year at Data and AI Summit. Mm-hmm. It's currently in beta, and we've had about hundreds of customers build agents on Agentbricks already. Even this early into the development of it. So these are products that are shipping. These are capabilities where customers are getting value today from this.
Okay. Would you be able to share where your customers are from, in which sectors at least?
Yeah, sure. So we work through kind of all sectors, but I'll give you a couple of examples of ones here in Singapore. Okay. Two great examples is Cycle and Carriage it's a dealership network in Singapore, and they use an internal AI assistant to raise productivity, and they also use externally. They use an AI assistant so that customers can ask questions and engage with the platform. So that's just a great example of a business here in Singapore that's taken advantage of this. Second example, GovTech. So this is the organization in charge of Singapore's public sector digital transformation. I'm telling you this, you probably already know this. But they're using Databricks to basically make those data insights available across their entire organization. So they basically they're allowing people to self-service get access to their data. So they don't have to be engineers to get access to the data. They can actually just do it themselves. Maybe I'll just give a third one.
Okay, you're being generous today.
This is a company that you know about that I just learned about, which is Casetify, which is the company that makes the custom phone cases.
Okay.
They track all of they basically build a customer data platform on Databricks. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? That means they understand all of their customers and what they're trying to do so that they can engage them on a one-on-one basis. So this means they can make recommendations to them about, hey, maybe you want to try this new phone case, or give them what's called next best action. Like, oh, you did a phone case, maybe you should then do this other thing next. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it allows them to engage with their many customers very efficiently. Millions of customers very efficiently. So just those are three kind of pretty cool use cases right here in your own backyard. Okay,
but I assume these are still early deployments?
No, these are deployments that have been around. They're in production. They're, for example, I give that Casetify example. That's those kinds of CDP deployments we've had on Databricks for many, many years. We've been doing AI for a long time, arguably since when we were founded 13 years ago. So we have so we have lots of AI use cases. It's certainly transformed as we move to Gen AI use cases. And now it's both kind of Gen AI and kind of more classical AI. But both of them work together very well. And that's really given us a nice way of, so we have this kind of really rich history of supporting these customers.
Okay, talking about agentic AI, I imagine enterprises are also asking, how do we make sure agents don't go off script?
Oh, yeah. So very good question. So one of the key things that, when you just use something like ChatGPT or you use one of these models directly, you do observe, a lot of these hallucinations and things like that. Mm-hmm. But that's because you're using a product that hasn't really been made ready for the enterprise. In the enterprise, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put evaluations in place and basically have automatic judges that say, is this, first of all, safe? Mm-hmm. You want to make sure that you're not saying something that's kind of generally incorrect or taboo. And then second of all, make sure it's accurate. Worst case, and by accurate, I mean sometimes like don't talk about your competitors or don't talk about these various things. So we have a very rich evaluation capability in Databricks. It's very easy to get started with and enables those customers to set up those evaluations. And evaluations are a core part of Agentbricks. And in fact, to get started with Agentbricks, oftentimes what you do is you just say, instead of saying, you actually give a benchmark and say, if you get this question, this is what you should answer. And make sure, and if you start with that benchmark, you'll actually always get those answers correct, even if they're not exactly written the way you'd expect.
If agentic AI is the next big leap, does it help close the gap between Asia and the US, or could it actually widen it?
Like I said earlier, I'm kind of bullish on the way that on Asia and technology in Asia, because like I said, I think what we've observed historically is that Asia just solves different problems with AI. And often we'll take something that we might view in the US as an already solved problem and solve it in a better way. And I think that's like the exciting thing, I think, about this. I think the beauty of AI is that it democratizes access to, anybody can utilize it. Mm-hmm. And I think we're even seeing things that are democratizing it further, like things like the sea lion model here that really supports the languages in the region. So I think that these things that we're seeing, I think, means that there's going to be a lot more people out there developing interesting new problems. And I think that's what makes it very special. So I don't view it necessarily as a competition thing. I think what I view it as is, sure, I doubt that there's going to be like an OpenAI competitor, but I don't think we need another OpenAI. What we need companies that are building technology to solve specific problems for their communities, for their countries, for whatever that is. And I think AI is available to everybody in that sense. So I think that's where I don't view it that way. And like I said, I think that Asia does have this special characteristic where it historically has taken new technologies and applied them in novel ways. And like I said, eventually we actually get those novel ways back in the US, like some of the super apps that exist in Asia that don't exist in the United States. Mm-hmm. And we're just starting to see that now. So there's just like really clever, cool uses of the technology that we see kind of making their way the other direction. Okay,
innovation aside, but give us a sense of what the landscape is like. Do business leaders actually need convincing that agentic AI is more than hype, that it will deliver real ROI?
I think most business leaders that we talk to, and of course we're talking to ones that are typically on the technology side, but they represent big, often large organizations that have lots of regulators and they're living in a world with a lot of complexity. Mm-hmm. They are excited. So we see a kind of excitement across the board. I think that different industries and different countries have different approaches to how AI should be adopted. And I think that's causing some disparities. And by the way, this is something we see, for example, in the financial services industry. It's very important that you don't say things that are inaccurate when you're telling somebody. If you tell somebody their bank balance is negative 500, and when in fact it's not, that people will like panic. So you got it. There's things where I think regulation is appropriate, but then that's also can stifle some of the new applications in those environments. So you have this kind of complicated place where I think it can't be used by everybody for every use case. But I think maybe I'll just give a more positive answer though, and that's I think that almost every company has a few use cases where agents make sense. And one of them is training your employees internally. This is a situation where you have a set of training as an organization that you want to train to your employees. The traditional way of doing it is getting people on a Zoom call and doing slide after slide after slide of training. What if instead of that, you had your own personal agent kind of helping train you on that. I think those kind of use cases, almost every organization can take advantage of. I think customer support is a huge thing as well, as long as you're not giving bank balances. I think it's actually a great one as well. Like, how do you help guide people through solving problems with your products or with your website or things like that? I think these types of use cases are ones that almost every enterprise can adopt to some level and get started with. And then the more regulated use cases and the more complicated and the more risky use cases can come after you're confident with the first ones, or as the regulatory environment lightens up, which is going to happen. If you remember 15 years ago, everybody was scared of the cloud everywhere in the world. And now we're at the point where almost everybody's in the cloud to some degree. I think AI is going to move much faster than that. We don't have to wait 15 years for AI to become that way, but I think it's going to take a little bit of time before every industry is okay with it.
Okay. Still on agentic AI, where does Singapore fit into this picture?
Yeah, like I mentioned, we have those. I give you 3 examples of customers. Singapore, of course, being a hub of so much financial activity, that's a very interesting thing. But I was just having lunch with somebody who's a technical leader at one of the banks who operates in Singapore. And they're using Gen AI internally to do this. They're using Gen AI internally to manage kind of legal documentation. They have tons of legal documentation they have to go through. They're using it right there. And think about how much effort that is. Pouring through tens of thousands of pages of documents where AI can do it not only quickly, but just so efficiently, cost efficiently, and really free up those people to not read all these documents, but instead focus on what policies they want to put in place and what problems they want to solve. So when I think of Singapore, I think of that kind of first and foremost being such a financial hub of all those interesting places that financial institutions can take advantage of AI.
Okay, so are you saying that's what business leaders should be prioritizing over the next year or two?
Oh, I think absolutely. I think every organization should view AI as transformative. It doesn't mean you have to transform your company overnight, which I think some people feel like they feel a lot of pressure to do that. But I think it's important for you to take a look at the problems that you have and try and see if you can apply AI to it. And the beauty of AI is that you can usually in a very short period of time, because it's so accessible, it's just human text, natural language that you're writing in there, that you can usually experiment and test and see what use cases make sense. And I think that's what organizations need to start doing. And moving from this idea of having a general intelligence model, which is, like what you have with ChatGPT, where it has general world knowledge, to what we call data intelligence, which is intelligence on your enterprise data, where you can actually start letting it, having the AI operate on your data, so it's able to help you make decisions and help you do things on top of your own data.
Adam, looking ahead, what do you see as the biggest risk for Asian enterprises if they delay on this AI adoption? I
hope this doesn't happen, but I don't believe it'll happen. But if it were to delay, I think it would just impact the efficiencies of the organizations. I think what we're seeing today with AI is an efficiency generation tool. It's like having a person next to you that is helping you do your work and do your job. If organizations aren't able to make this kind of transformation, aren't able to make this move, they just lose that efficiency of having that person next to you. And I think that's the risk to me in the short term. In the long term, everybody has predictions of what AI is going to do. But I think it'll probably be something different than all of those predictions. But I'll talk at least about the short term. And that's I think it's a primarily efficiency thing.
Okay, very quickly, while I still have you, what lessons do you think Singapore can draw from the US? And where do you think Asia could actually set the pace?
That's a great question. So I think what lessons, I think Singapore is doing pretty well, but on its own without those lessons. But let me just give a couple things that I think that I see maybe in the Silicon Valley. I think especially in Silicon Valley, which is where I live, everybody is very energized and very aggressive about learning about these technologies and figuring out the applicability of it very rapidly. And I think that's always a good way to be. And like I said, in Singapore, I do see that. I see a lot of that. But I think that the opportunity is, if Singapore wants to kind of leapfrog or get ahead of the U.S. in this, I think it really comes down to, can Singapore focus first on those problems that are special to Singapore? But this is an area, of course, that I'm not an expert in because I'm not from Singapore. But focus on those issues that are core to Singapore so that you're able to, I think, solve problems that no U.S. company would be able to solve, or no U.S. company would even think to solve. And I think when you do that, I think that's when you get the real innovation out of these things, where you're solving problems in a different way. And like I said, that's what's exciting about those, is then those become interesting technologies to get used across the world. They eventually leak out of Singapore into other places, and that those companies can become larger, more powerful tech companies. So that would be my advice on that.
Adam, thank you so much for those insights. It's been a fascinating look at what the next leap might look like in this space and how Asia's AI journey compares with the US as well. Adam Conway, Senior Vice President of Products at Databricks.
Thanks, Lynlee. Appreciate it.
Thank you. This has been Industry Insight on Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.